Hi, how you doing? Sorry I didn't get that email with the link off to you, but I accidentally deleted the video that I made, so I have to make another one. And this will be that other one. Okay, just a quick look at my ham shack. You see up there right near the roof? That is my two dipoles. I have a 40, which is the long one, and the short one here is 20. Come on, focus. There we go. That's for HF, which I don't use much because my HF rig is on the blink. For VHF and UHF, going back one for HF, I also have this, which I made myself. It's a magnetic loop, very good little portable antenna for field day and that sort of thing. Now let's go out to the balcony and I'll show you what I use for VHF UHF. I've pulled a coax cable from my bedroom through the piping. You can probably see it over here. And that goes out through the window to the balcony. And here on the balcony is an X50, Diamond X50. And the Diamond X50 is a good little dual band antenna for repeaters and things like that. You might wonder why I mounted it so close to this wall. The reason being is I want my coverage to be in that direction, which is more or less downtown. If you're familiar with Toronto, you can probably see in the background. So there's the CN Tower in the middle of the picture. So I get excellent coverage from just to the right of this building here beside me, all the way over to, well, actually I get some coverage to the northwest as well. Coverage to the east is not as good as it could be, but it does actually cover quite a bit of the east. So I'm quite happy with the little setup I have. So let's take you back inside. I think I'll leave that open for now. So the biggest challenge was finding how to get the coax cable out to the balcony. If you have a balcony and you want to put an antenna out there, there are lots of ways to mount it without getting yourself in trouble with property management. So, you're only limited by your imagination. Now, as far as what kind of coverage are you going to get, well, obviously everything on the back side of the building behind me is considerably less than it could be. If you could get an antenna on the roof somehow, that would be optimal. But I've found that with insurance issues and stuff like that, very, very few people will let you out on their roof. But I do have good coverage mostly in the directions that I want my coverage. And I have worked, I'm in Scarborough, by the way, East End Scarborough actually, and I've worked stations in Oakville, stations down in Thorold, so the coverage is pretty good for that little antenna out on the balcony. There's other things that you can review, and I'm sure you have looked into it. If you want to do HF, there are several options for running HF antennas, especially if you're going to do it at night when property management's not around. Some people I know make a nice loop antenna like the one behind me, and just basically weight it down with a brick and push it out away from the balcony. And I find that really doesn't improve signal much. I set it up on a tripod, and it is somewhat a directional antenna, so I can point it more or less in the direction I want to be heard. And I've worked quite a few stations that way, even with the limited propagation that we now have on HF. The other option you might want to explore if you haven't already is hotspots. I have several hotspots. There's the first one I got, well, the second one. I bought one of the original ICOM hotspots, but that was just for DMR, no, D-Star. So, and if you're not familiar with digital, there's several different modes that you can use. This little RF, Shark RF, I should say, open spot will do most of them. It will not, however, do the mode that I like the best, which is P25, but that's a whole nother video. So you can set that up, and then all you need to do is have a handy talkie, and you can connect that up to any place in the world, basically, that has digital repeaters and so forth. The most popular mode apparently is DMR. It's rather crowded, so I chose to go with this Motorola P25 unit because there's a finite set of P25 operators because the radios are fairly expensive, although I picked this one up for a really decent price. So I have VHF over there, and this is UHF. I also have a VHF handheld, but it's redundant if I have the base running. And over there in the corner is the little Bit 40X. You may have heard of them. If you haven't heard of the Bit X radios, I suggest you go on the internet and scan them. They're really interesting radios. They're kind of a kit, but there's not a lot of assembly. You basically just have to wire up the external controls and the mic jack and that sort of thing. Everything else comes already wired, and you just have to put it in a box and away you go. So, I hope that gives you some idea what is possible from an apartment. There are some limitations. I'm kind of lucky. My superintendent is very tolerant of amateur radio. The only rule that they imposed upon me was that they didn't want anything hanging out over the balcony, like out into an area where it may fall down and hit somebody on the ground. And that, of course, is understandable. So you probably noticed in my shot of my X50 that it is actually leaning back, which actually lays the signal down on the horizon anyways. So that's actually a plus to begin with. And unless you know it's there, it's kind of hard to see because our buildings are painted white and the antenna itself is white. So it's kind of slightly stealth antenna. There are ways of hiding antennas if you have a really restrictive building or condo. You can look those up online. Everything from making it look like a planter to completely concealing it, in an area that it just can't be seen from the ground or even the balcony. Anyways, hope that helps, and I strongly advise you to not give up on amateur radio. If you're an HFer, then you've got several different things you can do on the balcony. There's commercial versions of the magnetic loop, monobanders that work really well, especially if you can run a little bit of amplification. There are other antennas that I look at them with a little bit of suspect because they're basically really weird looking configurations, but they apparently they tune without tuners and that sort of thing. So if you have a long balcony like mine, which is 20 feet or 22 feet to be exact, then dipoles for 20 meters are options, and you can bend the 40 meter antenna and put that up. 80 of course is stretching it, although I haven't given up entirely on 80 meters yet, but that's not a big deal right now because propagation is so bad that it's not a priority. So I work mostly right now on my hotspots for DX and my two radios here for local. Let me know how you make out. Appreciate it. And if you want, I'll send you the link to my other hand pages where you'll see some of the projects that I've done. You'll see me actually transmitting on the balcony using a old Yaesu radio, not a 101, but not far away from it, and making several contacts that way. And if you're into digital modes on HF, that you can do with indoor antennas with no problem. So take care, have a great day. 73 from VE3 HTB in Scarborough, and maybe we'll catch you on the air.